Hey everybody, Tracy Brown. Are you bouncing to the beat of that intro just the way I am? Even though I've heard it many times, it always gets me ready to hang out with you. My name is Tracy Brown, and I am this week's host, speaker, provocateur. I don't know on the Saturday Science of Mind conversation series, where every Saturday, one of us on the team comes live to you to talk about science of mind, to share with you resources related to the science of mind by Ernest Holmes, to help you think about or challenge you to think about what does the science of mind content mean to you and how are you applying it. Now, if you're a regular viewer, you know already that the first 8.5 months of the year, we literally take the Science of Mind textbook and go through it chapter by chapter, highlighting some of the key points in each chapter. And by mid-August, we have completed those highlights. So from mid-August through December this year, we decided to feature articles and information that you can access from the Science of Mind archives and library. So today I will be talking about the essence of science of mind, and it is content written by Ernest Holmes about when you bring it all down to the bare essence, what is science of mind all about? And because we're getting so close to the end of the year, just a little over a week left, I thought it would be great to, in some ways, summarize all the different things we've talked about by looking at the essence of science of mind before Dr. Robert Brzezinski comes in on the very last Saturday of the month and wraps the year. So I've put a link in the chat. If you want to find the essence of science of mind in the archives, you can do so. And let's see who we've got with us today. Let's see. Let me go over to the chat. Of course, we've got Wayne Baldwin and we've got Shay Bird. I love that you are with us today. And Shay and Roy. Hey, Roy, I haven't seen you in a while, so I'm really happy that you're with us today. And let's see if we've got anybody else who's logged in. Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson hanging out with us, and there are a few people listed here in my comments that just say Facebook user, and I don't have your name, and that's great. And I can see that we have people on YouTube and Facebook and 2 or 3 different places on Facebook, and even someone watching on LinkedIn. So great. If you want to, at some point, feel free to chat. This is a conversation as well as me just sharing information with you. So the essence of science of mind, the essence of science of mind. You can find this in the archives. If you are not already a member of the Science of Mind Library and Archives, then you can feel free to join. You can download this document without joining. It'll be $1.99. And if you join, however, for a very low cost point, I believe it's $10 a month, you can have multiple downloads in the course of each month. And you could be like me and join on an annual plan, or you could join in one of the other options as well. So today we are talking about the essence of science of mind. And this is a 7-page document. And so some people would say 7 pages is not a summary, but that would be someone who doesn't know that the Science of Mind textbook is almost 700 pages long. So if you think about it that way, capturing what the essence is in 7 pages is better than I think I could do. So how does Ernest Holmes begin this summary in the essence of Science of Mind? I love that he starts with this first paragraph. Science of mind, in its broadest and truest sense, includes the best in science, the best in religion, and the best in philosophy. It is not a personal opinion, nor is it a special revelation. It is the result of the best thoughts of the ages. It borrows much of its light from others, but in so doing does not rob anyone. For truth is universal and never personal. We need the entire revelation of the whole world, and even with this, we shall have little enough. I love that reminder that Science of Mind is not some magic, and it's not just a collection of ideas that Ernest Holmes thought of himself. Ernest Holmes read the both historical and philosophical information that laid the foundation for all of the major mystical, religious, and philosophical paths. And he connected or synthesized the common message that ran throughout these many different paths. So sometimes you'll hear us talk about the golden thread, right? The golden thread, or the universal message that goes through many, many different or different ways or different philosophies of approaching life and different religions. And that is what is synthesized into the Science of Mind. So it's this entire document, and pulling out the essence of Science of Mind is in effect pulling forward the essential message of love, the essential message of how the world works, how the universe works, that you can find in the underlying text, or in the mystical traditions, the mystical understanding of the different traditions across many traditions. So thanks, Fiona, for being with us. I love that you say serena seasonal blessings, because there's so many holy days and holidays during this season that, yes, I join with you in wishing everyone seasonal blessings. And I hope that for many, it's a lot of fun and there's a lot of serenity and peace. We've also got Anita, who has joined us. So yeah, we've got Canada and a couple of people from Colorado and Texas and Geneva, Switzerland, and Dr. Robert Brzezinski himself hanging out with us this morning, along with the others that I already highlighted. So Shay is encouraging me. It's no wonder I love this so much. It's my three favorite subjects boiled down into one cohesive philosophy. Absolutely. The best in science, the best in religion, and the best in philosophy. That's what Ernest Holmes says. So I'm curious, for those of you who have spent some time already learning about and studying and teaching and practicing science of mind, if you had to boil science of mind down to one or two sentences, how would you describe it? What is the science of mind? On the cover of the book, it says it's a philosophy, a faith, a philosophy, and a way of life. And that is one of the descriptions I use a lot when people ask me, what is science of mind? But what would you say? What would you say? Be thinking about that. Put it in the chat if you want, but be thinking about that as I share with you how Ernest Holmes drilled down to the essence of what this faith and philosophy and way of life is all about. So in the second paragraph, Ernest Holmes writes, the universe is impersonal, it gives to all, it is no respecter of persons, it values each alike. The philosopher, the priest, and the professor, the humanitarian and the empire builder, they all have caught some gleam of the eternal glory, and each has spoken in his own tongue, that language which is of itself universal. So what's so cool about this is I know a lot of people when I've been, teaching classes, um, a lot of times there are people who get really uncomfortable when they read the universe is impersonal, or God is impersonal, or spirit is impersonal, and they feel like, oh no, I'm being abandoned, or spirit doesn't care about me, or the universe doesn't care about me, and it hits all of our human emotions, and we start thinking of it like, oh, my parents don't love me and they're not going to take care of me, right? And it's really a predictable human response to the idea of impersonal. However, in the context of what we know about science of mind, science is impersonal. It works the same. The law of gravity works the same for everyone. The law of gravity doesn't say, oh, well, I'm going to keep Tracy grounded to the earth today, but I'm not going to keep Shay grounded to the earth today. I'm just going to remove gravity from Shay. And, it's not going to work for her. And she'll just be, I don't know, like a helium balloon where the helium is let out and flying all over everywhere. Impersonal really connects to the pattern of consistency. It is not driven by personality. And I don't know about you, but I know for me, I want whatever is running the universe to be predictable and reliable. And I don't want it to have like a human personality that some days it likes me and some days it doesn't. Some days it works for me and some days it doesn't. I want to know that it is impersonal, how it works and why it works. My job then is to get in alignment with what makes it work, or with the way that it works, so that it can work for me, with me, for me, through me, as me, however that resonates with you. So that sentence, the universe is impersonal, is important to come to grips with. Now, I love, again, right, the how are we going to describe science of mind? I've got some things in here that are really great. A metaphysical liberation theology that offers the individual and the collective, a path to greater self-awareness and a practical, applicable practice to live as best we can, individually and collectively. Yes, yes, yes. And is it important to be able to describe what science of mind is in your own words? I think it is, because so often many of us who have studied it and who are using the principles of science of mind in our daily lives, when people ask us about it, when we can't talk about it or we can't describe it in the context of what it is, what it offers, and how it works, then it just confuses people or makes them even more suspicious. Like, I've never heard of that. Is it Scientology? Is that what they're talking about? Or I never heard about that, and I don't know, it sounds really weird. It sounds weird because most of us, not most, many of us cannot describe it in everyday language and with a meaning that makes sense to people who are not studying it already. So I love that. And again, keep thinking about that as we pay attention to what Ernest Holmes had to say about the faith, the philosophy, and the way of life called Science of Mind. Third paragraph, and then we'll start moving around a little bit, because if I go paragraph by paragraph, we'll never make it through the 7 pages. Third paragraph, Science of Mind does not scoff at the works of medical science, for instance. They both work to help and heal humanity. Science of Mind is a complement to medical science, and when so understood and practiced, it will help heal the world of its physical infirmities. The world of knowledge needs to be knit together and not pulled apart. We have no objection to any form of healing. What we insist on is that there can be no permanent healing of the body without a correspondingly permanent poise in the mental and emotional life. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. There can be no physical healing without a corresponding healing in the mental and emotional life. This is so foundational to understanding the essence of Science of Mind and what we teach, and how we apply it. So we don't have to be for or against Western medicine. We don't have to be for or against naturopathic or homeopathic remedies. We What we have to do, quote unquote, have to do, what we must do is understand that what is happening in the physical is affected by the mental and the emotional. What is happening in the physical is affected by the mental and the emotional. And what Science of Mind teaches us is how to align our spiritual truth with the mental, emotional, and physical, and how to integrate them in such a way that we experience a life that we love. And we get to define that. We get to define how we respond to different situations and occurrences. And we get to define or direct our flow, our experience, our way of being in whatever is happening in the world. So I'm hoping that this is making sense to you. Again, you can find this entire piece, The Essence of Science of Mind, in the Science of Mind archives and library on the website. And you can, copy this link, and the link is in the comments, or you can just go to Science of Mind Library and do a search for the essence of Science of Mind. So let's go a little bit further. I love this paragraph that Ernest Holmes begins with. The road to freedom lies not through mysteries or occult performances, but through the intelligent use of natural forces and the laws. The law of mind is a natural law in the spiritual world. We need not ask why this is so. There can be no reason given as to why the truth is true. We do not create laws and principles, but we discover and then make use of them. Let us accept this position relative to the law of mind and spirit and see what we can do with it rather than how we may contradict the inevitable. Our mind and spirit is our echo of the eternal thing itself. And the sooner we discover this fact, the sooner we shall be made free and happy. God, the universal life force and energy running through everything, is an intelligent presence pervading all space. It is a self-existent cause. It is a perfect unit. It is a complete wholeness. Really important sentence in this paragraph. We do not create laws and principles, but we discover them and make use of them. This is something that's really different from what I have experienced or heard or read about in many other denominations or many other approaches to spirituality and religion. This idea that there is a universal truth, there is a universal way of being, there is universal or spiritual law about how things have been created and how they operate. And we're not creating anything new. We are simply discovering how it works. The law of aerodynamics existed, right? The Lindbergh brothers did not create the law of aerodynamics. They experimented and they learned how to use it to make a plane fly. The law of aerodynamics already existed. We just had not discovered it or had not figured out how to use it to transport people or items from point A to point B. The law of electricity existed, but it had to be discovered or revealed through a scientific process, and then learning how to use it is what we had to do. And so while this is true for all universal laws, spiritual, physical, and otherwise, what is important for us to remember as students of science of mind is that that's what we're doing. Now, Ernest Holmes said, there's nothing to heal, only the truth to reveal. Well, we're uncovering, discovering, and revealing the truth, and then getting ourselves in alignment with that in order to manifest what we want to experience in our lives. So all of this is just like the first page in this document, right? And I already told you there's 7 pages. But I think it's important for us to spend this chunk of time really on these first key elements, because if you know anything about science of mind, you know that Ernest Holmes builds. Then he goes back and he repeats. And then he builds on that. And then he repeats. And so it's that foundation, these very early key points upon which he builds and upon which we then begin to understand at a deeper level what is the essence of science of mind. So on the second page, one of the most important things are these two paragraphs. So Ernest Holmes is educating us, right? He's educating us in this philosophy and what it's built around. So he writes, in olden times, an intelligent few understood much deeper truths than were known by the multitude, but the common people were thrown a few crumbs from the tables of those who were in the know. These crumbs were shrouded in mystery, symbolism, word pictures, and parable. Perhaps this was the only way in which wisdom could have been taught at all. In principle, the great religions of the world do not differ as much as they appear to. Stripped of their accumulations of adornments and observances and incrustations of interpretations, it is found that each acknowledges that there is one central power, force, or God, which is self-existent. And it is from this one power that all things emanate. All of the life flows from it and is a part of it. Nothing can exist separate from it. The Christian interpretation of the ultimate nature of the creative source of the universe places more emphasis on the life of the individual as being an integral part of the one life. For this reason, an intelligent understanding of the fundamental concepts of Christianity has had a greater appeal to the progressing peoples of the world. But even in the Christian religion, much of its real meaning is hidden by words that are misleading and symbols that but few understand. We could scarcely find a greater riddle to solve than the meaning of the Holy Trinity. Also, most people either reject the Bible entirely or accept it totally and literally. Both these methods are mistakes. Religion is a man's idea of God, and the Bible is a written declaration of the belief in God held by a great race of people, the Jews. It is in many respects the greatest book ever written and does truly point a way to eternal values. Now, this is a very interesting read for me for a lot of reasons. For one reason, it's just interesting. It's interesting to stop and reflect on, oh, what are different ways of thinking? And I already shared with you and reminded you that what Ernest Holmes did was he studied all of the major religions and looked for the golden thread, right? And then he captured that and synthesized that into what we know as the science of mind. That in itself is interesting and has been to me for a long time. But I recently returned from 2 weeks in Egypt. And so part of my experience in Egypt was paying attention to the patterns and looking for the common thread and really grappling in a light way, but grappling with there are all of these different gods and goddesses, and there was all this symbolism. And there were some days where it felt like, well, no, the Egyptians didn't believe in one God. And we do, we say there's one God, like even though there are many forms and many names. And then there were other days where I'd be in the temples and I would be taking it all in and I would recognize, oh, wait. There are these different gods and goddesses, but they're all going back to the one thing. And we had an Egyptologist on the tour with us who made the point so many different times about there were many different names for the different energies, but they all work together as one. And I was like, that's it right there. There are 126 aspects of God that you use and that you call upon or that you align with in order to be a part of the whole. But they were not, even in ancient times, considered separate. Well, and this may sound like it's a digression, but it's really not. It's how this writing by Ernest Holmes is coming together for me, is coming together for me right now, having recently been in Egypt. The idea that if there's one idea that all of the ancient Egyptian patterns and stories kept going back to in life and in the afterlife, is that the goddess Mut would release the sun in the morning and it would travel from east to west and return to the goddess Mut for the night, healing and re-energizing so that it could then be released again the next morning, and that this went from east to west, just like today we see the sun rise in the east and set in the west. And it was very interesting that in the afterlife, so much of what is happening is a reflection of this common um, thread that Ernest Holmes found when he studied the different religions, that there are different energies and that there are different focus points, but it is all tied to this cycle, and that life is eternal. So it is not just what we experience when we are in our human bodies. So I'm processing a lot of this right now and just kind of letting it marinate into not just my brain, but into my psyche and my understanding of spiritual truth and universal truth. But this idea of the life of an individual being integral in the part of an integral part of the one life is is capturing me once again. Let's go down to this paragraph here. Into these two paragraphs: intellectual freedom and religious liberty are necessary to the unfolding spirit in humanity. Whatever is true is free to all alike. We cannot cover the infinite with a finite blanket. It refuses to be concealed. God has no favorites and knows no privileged class. Science of mind reads every person's Bible and gleans the truth contained therein. So that could be the Bible, that could be the Quran, and that could be the Bhagavad Gita, that could be your favorite book of poetry, right? Whatever you are considering as your Bible, your guide, your spiritual understanding. It studies, science of mind studies all knowledge and draws from each that which is self-evident. Only that which is self-evident can stand the test of reason and time, without criticism, without judgment, but by true discrimination or discernment. That which is true and provable may be allocated, may be discovered, may be revealed, and then put to practical use. We should take truth wherever we find it, making it our very own, borrowing knowledge of reality from all sources, taking the best from every study, Science of mind brings together the highest enlightenment of the ages. That's what we're about. In the essence of science of mind, that's what we're about. We are about discovering the ancient wisdom, the truth, that which is discernible, that which is unchanging, and integrating it into how we live. Dr. Ray. Dr. Ray says it's important to remind people that the law of peace on earth exists now. We simply need to discover it just as we did the laws of buoyancy, electricity, aerodynamics, periodic chart, etc., etc., etc. And here your name is visible, Dr. Ray, but on some posts it's not. And what that makes me think, because I know Dr. Raymond Anderson, and because I know science of mind, what that makes me think is that Dr. Ray has discovered the law of bilocation and has put it to use by being logged in more than one place at the same time and having comments show up. And it's all possible. It once you know how to access and use the law. And if anybody knows how to access, use, teach, and practice the immutable laws of not just science of mind, but of universal truth, it would be Dr. Ray. Ernest Holmes says, we do live in a spiritual universe, a universe that is intelligent and creative, and it is a thing of law and order. It is God's universe, a divine idea and thought that has become manifest. God becoming that which he has created through the law of his nature. It is one stupendous whole with God as both cause and effect, idea and manifestation, and the law by which one becomes the other are all one in the inherent nature of God. And you learned right here on the New Thought Media Network the secret that Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson has mastered by location like the superhero he is. So it's not a secret anymore. We can expect nothing less. So Ernest Holmes in this article, or in this summary of the essence of science of mind, really does give us, even though I'm, being a little playful, he gives us a real gift. A real gift in understanding that science of mind is a faith. So it is a system of religion, of values, of guidance about how to live your life. It is a philosophy that incorporates the philosophies of so many different paths over many, 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 many centuries. And most important, in my opinion, those two things lead to science of mind as a way of life. As a way of life. And this is a part where I think many people who have been introduced to science of mind, they stop at this point. They want to understand the philosophy. They may be wanting to practice something that feels like faith to them, or a religious practice or system to them, but they drop off the way of life part. Personal opinion. So this is not necessarily fact. It's just my observation that many people who study science of mind, like any other faith or philosophy, it's very mental. It gives me something to think about. It blows my mind. I can sound really smart when I can quote or repeat. But for me, the rubber meets the road when I can follow the way someone lives and see those principles in action. Most important, when I can follow the way I am living and see those principles in action. Because between you and me, I don't have a whole lot of time to follow what you're doing or pay attention to what someone else is doing or evaluate and judge what, tens of thousands of other people are doing. My work is in my own life. And do I understand these principles and am I seeing them evidenced in my own life? That is the faith, the philosophy, and the way of life. And because all of that is connected, then yes, I do understand that the way that I am living and what I am doing does impact the way of life or the experience of life for other people, not just the people who are in my family, but thousands of people, millions of people around the world. And we don't do the best job in the Science of Mind movement of really holding people accountable for the way of life part. So, Dr. Ray, right, I don't care how many recipes someone knows in their head. I want the opportunity to taste the meals, which means application of the recipes. And Shay, I find it very difficult to explain this to anybody. If I say anything to the tone of this is a synthesis of all the major religions, and it's the essence and best of each of them, people of any of those religions are going to be offended. Christians would say it's blasphemy. I tend to keep it mostly to myself because I choose peace. Wow. I don't think you're alone in that observation or reflection, Shay. I can share that my experience has been a little different because I have been blessed and lucky enough to mostly have the conversations where I'm not trying to convert anyone and they're not trying to convert me, and laying the foundation of curiosity, like what are the primary tenets, and then looking for the common elements often works because there are always common elements. And it's like, oh, yeah, we believe that too. It is a part of our 10 basic beliefs. Or, yes, it's not better than or worse than. It's a combination of key things from different paths, spiritual paths. One thing, and Shay, you just repeated what Ernest Holmes wrote in the very beginning of this writing, that Science of Mind takes the best from each of these paths. What I tend to say is not the best, because who am I to decide it's the best? Best is so subjective. It's not objective. And so what I tend to do is say that Ernest Holmes took the commonalities that were among the 13 different uh, major paths or the primary religions of the world, and what they have in common and what they teach at the mystical level. And I have found that people are not as defensive in that regard. And they're not so judgmental either. Like, who are you to decide? Or who was Ernest Holmes to decide that that was the best thing about my religion? I think the best thing about my religion is A, B, or C. And so all of it is just the practice of sharing what I believe. And I don't need you to believe anything different. I don't need you to agree with me. I'm just telling you what works for me. So that's the practice that all of us have the opportunity to practice. But if we don't practice it, then we probably don't get really good at it or don't get really comfortable. Ernest Holmes was doing just that in this document. He was sharing what he considered the essence of science of mind. So we've got just a few more minutes. Let me jump to a couple of other key points that he makes in this document. He talks a lot on the next page about prayer and what prayer is, that you are really not praying to someone outside of yourself. And this paragraph that if you've been in Science of Mind a while, you've heard, it must be that the answer to prayer is in the prayer when it is prayed. It is not in the inclination or the disinclination of God to answer some, but not others. God answers prayer according to law and order, the immutable law of the universe. Prayer is a thought, a belief, a feeling arising within the mind of the one praying. And this feeling becomes a complete belief and a perfect acceptance when the mind is most completely in tune with the infinite. The prayer of faith is answered because the prayer of faith admits of an answer while the prayer of unbelief does not admit of one. Long story short, this just goes back to what you have heard so many of us talk about over and over again, like what you believe is what you receive, right? What you believe is possible makes the impossible possible. And Ernest Holmes himself defines faith, right, as a mental attitude so fully embodied that really nothing can contradict it. So he connects faith and prayer and belief in this little section of the essence of science of mind and why the science of mind works, because your belief and your faith are in something that is impersonal, in universal laws, and in how those universal laws work to create. And as we discover more and more how to use those laws, then we create more and more things that we didn't know before, simply because we had not discovered it. We had not discovered how to use what already exists. So, two more things, and then we'll close out. Number one is this paragraph: the universal mind contains all knowledge. I could just stop right there. The universal mind contains all knowledge. It is the potential ultimate of all things. To it, all things are possible. To us, as much as possible as we conceive according to law. Next paragraph, we waste time in arguing over things that cannot be answered. When we have arrived at the ultimate that is the ultimate, it is the way the thing works. Therefore, we have a right to say that there is a law involved and that this law executes our word, our prayer. We discover laws, find out how they work, and then begin to use them. Therefore, we say it is the nature of thought and a creative law to be this way. So, in true Ernest Holmes fashion, he tells you and he repeats and then he tells you again. And so we're going to end with the last 3 paragraphs of this writing. We studied the thought of the ages and are not ashamed to admit any falsity in our own thought. We are after the truth and shall be satisfied with nothing less than the truth, which proves itself to be really true. We are scientific searchers for that truth, which makes humanity free, and we know that we have found entrance to it. The past is behind, and whatever doubt it may have held is gone with it. The future is before, bright with prospects. The eternal sun of righteousness is ever ascending, never to descend. Let us look toward the high goal of lasting attainment, a fearless and happy. Let us live in the present, looking neither backward in horror nor forward with apprehension, but looking into the present with joy, abiding in faith. Religious science is a correlation of laws of science, opinions of philosophy, and revelations of religion applied to human needs and the aspirations of humanity. So, if you want to be able to talk about science of mind, you can do it in less than 7 pages. You could do it in 1 or 2 paragraphs. And that connection, right, of science, philosophy, and religion, science, philosophy, and religion, thought and emotion and doing or activity, right? Thought and feeling and action. How can you incorporate all 3 into a few sentences that capture what science of mind means to you? Now, that's really your homework assignment. I know I have no way to grade it. I have no way to know if you'll do it, but I'm going to be working on this. I have been able to talk about science of mind comfortably for years, for decades. However, having recently been to Egypt, I don't have any doubts. I just feel like, wow, I have some new information to incorporate into my explanation of what is science of mind. I have some new ideas and some new understandings of an ancient philosophy to incorporate in how I talk about science of mind. And a final comment from Dr. Ray. I used to be an art teacher, and as such, there were many genres of art that I was required to teach. Same thing I learned then was that the audience will influence how I present the information. Was I teaching Andy Warhol to first graders or high school seniors? Same thing with science of mind and spirit. Who is the audience and why am I sharing? And when you have your own understanding that you can express in your own way with examples from your own life, then you can do exactly what Dr. Ray encourages there. Adapt the message to age appropriate, audience appropriate, in order to represent what it is and to introduce. And yeah, I knew that would make sense to you, Shay. So thanks for chiming in. I want to say to all of you, thank you so much for the comments today, for engaging in the program, for jumping in. We had some great comments today. If the programming, this program, or other programming on the New Thought Media Network really resonates with you, then please go to ntmedia.org, the website, and click on donate to support this programming and to make sure that the network stays available to you for many, many years to come. My name is Tracy Brown. I am so glad that you joined in today on the Science of Mind Saturday Conversation series. And I hope that you will join us again next week and every week beyond that. Have a great rest of your day.